The first arrivals and the fight for rights. Did you know that Jewish history in Canada goes back almost 300 years? It's a story about people who refused to give up and helped build the country we live in today. It starts with a bit of a mystery. The first Jewish person recorded in Canada was named Esther Brandeau, who arrived in 1738. But back then, New France had strict rules about who could enter, so Esther had to disguise herself as a boy just to gain passage on the ship. By 1768, a permanent community formed in Montreal and established the Sharith Israel Synagogue. That's the oldest synagogue in Canada, and it is still active today. But life wasn't always fair. In 1807, a man named Ezekiel Hart was elected to the government in Lower Canada. Even though he won the vote, he was denied his seat simply because of his religion. That injustice sparked a huge movement. For the next 25 years, people argued and fought for change. Finally, in 1832, a law was passed giving Jewish people in Canada full political rights. This was a big deal because they were some of the first people in the entire British Empire to win these rights. By the way, the British Empire was the massive group of countries ruled by Britain at the time, including places like Australia, India, and Jamaica. So Canada was actually leading the way in fairness. Building the clothing industry and community centers. Fast forward to the 1880s. Thousands of Jewish families began moving to Canada to escape violence, called pogroms, in Eastern Europe and Russia. They came here for safety, but they also brought skills. Many newcomers had worked as tailors back home. When they arrived, they used those skills to work in factories and start businesses. In fact, Jewish garment workers are the ones who largely built Canada's clothing industry. Because of their hard work in the early days, cities like Montreal became world famous for fashion and textiles. Despite their hard work, they faced anti-Semitism, which means hate or prejudice against Jewish people. Some businesses wouldn't hire them, and universities limited how many Jewish students could join. They were even banned from some social clubs, golf courses, and vacation spots. So what did they do? They built their own. A great example is the Jewish Community Center of Toronto, which opened in 1953. They built it specifically because they were excluded from other clubs in the city. It became a hub for sports and gathering where everyone was treated with respect. Things got very tense in 1933. In Toronto, a riot broke out at a park called Christie Pitts. It started after a group displayed a Nazi swastika at a baseball game to intimidate Jewish players. Jewish youth stood up for themselves, and it turned into a massive confrontation. The 1930s and 40s were a terrifying time. As the Nazis targeted Jewish people in Europe, many tried to escape to Canada. But the Canadian government, led by Prime Minister Mackenzie King, had strict rules against letting them in. One official famously said about Jewish refugees, "None is too many." The saddest moment was in 1939 with a ship called the MS St. Louis. It carried over 900 Jewish refugees, but Canada refused to let it land. The ship was forced to return to Europe, and many passengers later died in concentration camps. It wasn't until after the war that Canada's attitude changed, and thousands of Holocaust survivors were finally welcomed. Even when they were excluded, Jewish Canadians focused on helping others. For example, when Jewish doctors weren't allowed to work in many hospitals, the community founded Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto in 1923. Today, it is one of Canada's top hospitals and treats patients from all backgrounds. Jewish Canadians also became leaders in business. The Levy family, who are from Hamilton, Ontario, founded The Score. They completely changed how we watch sports news and created a sports app that many people still use today for sports news and betting. Izzy Asper, who is from Winnipeg, founded CanWest Global, creating one of the biggest media companies in the country. And Harley Finkelstein helped build Shopify, which powers online stores all over the world. Jewish Canadians have also shaped our sports, our culture, and our laws. In the world of sports, there was Louis Rubenstein. Known as the father of Canadian figure skating, he won the first unofficial world championship in Russia back in 1890. But it wasn't easy. Because he was Jewish, Russian police confiscated his passport and tried to kick him out. He needed a special letter from Lord Stanley just to stay. Despite the hate, he won the gold and spent the rest of his life building sports organizations for cycling and bowling in Montreal. Then there is Leonard Cohen, a world-famous musician and poet whose songs are loved globally, adding a deep artistic voice to Canada's identity. And finally, Rosalie Abella. Like Rubenstein, she broke barriers. She became a Supreme Court justice and was a huge champion for human rights. Her work in the law helped make Canada a fairer place for everyone. Today, the community continues to stand up against hate. Canada has built the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa and created special roles to fight anti-Semitism. From Esther Brandeau disguising herself to get here, to the leaders shaping our country today, this is a story of resilience. It reminds us that we all have a job to do, to include others, treat everyone fairly, and build a country where we can all thrive together.
Hi, I'm Maple. Don't forget to like and subscribe.